on today's webinar on Secrets of a Successful Mentorship. My name is Justin Valentine, and I am the Member Relations Manager for Comptia Pro. I will be introducing our speakers in a moment, but I'd first like to ask everyone to mute your microphones if you haven't already. We would like to limit any interference while the speakers are presenting. We will be recording today's webinar, and the recordings and the slides will be made available afterwards. We also will have some time at the end for Q&A. But if you do have questions that come to mind during the presentation, feel free to add them to the chat box, and we will address those as well. And a quick reminder, our next webinar, Investigating a Hacker Lifestyle, will be on May 9th at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can register for that webinar at comptia.org or at aitp.org. Now I'd like to introduce our three amazing presenters today. We have Christina Graisman. She currently serves as partner strategist on the public sector team at Amazon Web Services. We have Jeff Ponce, who is the COO and Executive Vice President at DataTel Solutions, Inc., and Hillary Gatta, who is the Director of National Channel Development for TPX. All three of our speakers today come from our Comptia communities, where they all hold leadership positions. And all three combined have over 50 years of experience in mentor relationships. And we are very honored to have them with us here today. Now I'd like to hand it over to Christina, who will talk about building your personal board of directors.
Great, thank you so much. And of course, mentorship and being a mentee, a mentor and a mentee are such a critical role as a part of a board of directors, but I'm going to talk about kind of the broader personal board of directors and how mentorship fits into that. Like a board of directors guides and shapes the CEO of a corporation, you can have a personal board of directors to guide and shape your career. Because in today's global economy, regardless of the logo on your paycheck, you're in business for yourself. You know, your career is your business. So obviously we're in a virtual situation, so I can't see all of you. So I'm going to ask some questions. So mentally think about these in your head, whether this is a yes or a no for you. But how many of you are looking to advance in your career? Do you want a management role? Do you want to be seen as a thought leader? Do you want the opportunity to pursue pet projects, maybe something like taking a temporary assignment working abroad? Do you want to make more money? Something as simple as that. How do you make all of that happen if you do want to do those things? And what are some of the speed bumps that you might encounter along the way? And that's what I'm going to talk about today. So who am I and why should you be listening to me? So as Justin said, my name is Christina Graisman. And, you know, he mentioned my title, but as I think about who I am and what I do, I'm really a creative problem solver, an idea generator, an enthusiastic promoter who seeks synergies among people and businesses. I'm also strategic, a learner, a maximizer, an achiever. I'm intrigued by the unique qualities of each person in my life. I'm also a Myers-Briggs ENTJ, and my DISC profile says that I'm an influencer and a driver. I'm also selective about my needs for inclusion, control, and close personal relations. That was a lot, right? I'm not telling you all of that to brag. I'm telling you that because in order for you to assemble a personal board of directors, you need to know yourself first. You need to know and be cognizant of your interests, your strengths, your talents, your work preferences, your work styles, so that you're rounding out yourself with people who will complement you and people who will challenge you. And I can say personally that by assembling a personal board of directors, I went from a scaredy cat, you know, very early in my career to a tiger by the tail. And now I'm going to share with you what I've learned along the way to help you achieve the advancement and the success that perhaps you are looking for. Okay, advance. So who is on the personal board of directors, right? So these are the main roles. First and foremost, the two most important are the mentors and the sponsors. These are the people who are giving you guidance on what a potential future looks like and who can lift you up in your organization. The next set of roles are called the mentees and the reverse mentors. So these are people that you guide and teach along your career path. The next role I like to call a pacing partner. These are your peers that make you better, that help you sharpen the saw. And then the last role, I consider this optional because you'd have to pay for it. A lot of the other roles people will do on a volunteer basis, but you can actually hire trained professionals who can help you through different aspects or stages of your career. So I like to think of that as a personal trainer for your career path. So I'm going to talk about the mentor and the sponsor first, and then I'm going to finish going through the board of directors, and then I'm going to go back and do an interview session with Jeff and Hillary, who have had a long-standing mentor-mentee relationship, and we're going to dive into this topic a little bit deeper with them and how their relationship has worked and evolved over time. So what's a mentor? And there's a lot written about mentors, and recently there's a lot written about sponsors. These are two very separate and distinct roles, and they're equally important. A mentor is the person who gives you advice. This person can be inside or outside of your company, and the relationship can be formal or informal. It doesn't have to be a formal relationship. And these people help you determine what a possible future can look like. And they're willing to give you honest feedback, and they're invested in your career. The sponsor, your mentor can sponsor you, but again, if they're outside your organization or depending on where they are, they might not be in a position to sponsor you. A sponsor is the person who advocates for you on your behalf, even if they don't necessarily have a direct benefit. They're sticking their neck out for you, and that's why they're so powerful. So ideally, this person is within your organization. This person is typically senior to you. They're familiar with your work, and they can recommend you or defend you when you're not in the room. They provide the advocacy, right, as well as the tactical means of helping you realize advancement. So when opportunities for planned assignment or promotions are being discussed, is your name being thrown into the ring? That most often depends on the quality and the quantity of your sponsors. So I'm going to give you a quick example of that from my own career. A couple of years ago, my company needed to plant its channel program in Western Europe. Our channel partner program, our technology program, was only in the United States, and they wanted to plant it into Europe, and they were going to send somebody from the U.S. team over to Europe for 6 months to go get that program started. And I was very lucky that the executive, the channel chief that ran our organization, was a mentor of mine and was a sponsor of mine. But more importantly, I had done the work over the past year to recruit our chief revenue officer as a sponsor of mine. And the channel chief reported into the chief revenue officer. And so when this opportunity was being discussed, to be honest, I was a mom with 2 kids, and so for a 6-month assignment, they were going to have to send me and my whole family to Dublin, Ireland. So I was not the cheapest option that they could have sent, but that executive responsible for sales advocated for me, and he said, "No, Christina is the right person for this job. We'll pay for the larger apartment. We'll pay for the other expenses. It's worth it because she's the right person to send." And I got to go do that assignment, and I definitely saw some major jumps in my career as a result of having that experience in my background. So just one example of how powerful sponsorship really can be and how that can catapult you from a career advancement perspective. The other thing I'll say is these relationships do evolve and play different roles at each career stage. So again, I'm going to be really curious to hear what Jeff and Hillary how they talk about how their relationship has evolved, because they've been working together for over 20 years. And so clearly where their careers were 20 years ago is not where they are today. So these relationships do evolve over time. Now, I also want to make a point about a mentor and a sponsor versus a role model. So I might say that, Sheryl Sandberg, for example, is a role model of mine, or Michelle Obama is a role model of mine. These women don't know me, at least not yet. So they're role models. To me, in order for a mentorship relationship to really be effective, it has to be an active relationship. So just make sure as you're thinking about your personal board of directors, it's great to have role models as well, but just don't confuse role model with a mentor or a sponsor. Those people should know who you are and are engaging with you on a regular basis. Okay. All right, so how do you find mentors and sponsors? This is more art than science, I'll be honest with you. So one of the things to think about is who are people who are, visible in the organization. A lot of times people who are willing to give you guidance are the people that are out there talking and they're visible and, they're accessible. It's going to be hard to get someone to mentor you if they're very introverted and they're just not very accessible. So look for people that are visible and accessible in your organization or in your community. Those might be good candidates. Here are some other things to look at. One, who holds roles or job duties that you admire or you're interested in? Who has a good reputation and is well respected in your organization or your industry? Do you feel a connection with someone? Do you have something in common with them that you can engage with them regularly about? Who's got an open door policy that's open to questions or engagement? Who has a reputation for volunteering or mentoring others? So these are some things to look at as you're looking to identify mentors and sponsors. The process is more like dating than recruiting. Like I said, it's more art than science. So you've got to look around, you've got to listen in, and you've got to pay attention. So identifying mentors and sponsors is very much an active process. Chemistry is key. So how do you engage mentors and sponsors? Do not go up to someone and say, will you be my mentor? This is kind of like asking someone to marry you on the first date. That's a very intimidating thing to ask. Although I will say, this is a do as I say, not as I do. One of my best mentors recently in my career, I did exactly that to her, and I asked her to be my mentor, and it worked out. I took a risk, and it worked out. But typically, that's not the way to go about it. Once you have identified someone, start small. Don't expect them to invest an entire lunch or an entire dinner with you at first. One of the ways that I've done it that's been very successful is if I've identified someone, maybe they were in a meeting or they gave a presentation or they're working on a project, and I thought of a question that I might ask them or maybe an insight that I would want to share with them. And I would just start there and ask that question or share that insight, and then I would follow up with them and let them know, hey, you answered this question for me. Here's how that turned out. By the way, I took your advice, I did X, and here's how it turned out. And say thank you. I mean, that's another thing too. If you would like to endear yourself to mentors and sponsors, say thank you and follow up with them and let them know that they are helping you. They want to know that because they're getting something out of this as well. It's also important to be visible. Mentors will come to you to help you out, and they'll put the wind in your sails, right? Another good way to get started is with an informational interview. So you can show them a bit of your stuff by the way that you ask questions and follow up. And then you can also glean insights from them and then use that as a basis for sharing ideas and asking further questions. So another example of this, there was an executive in one of the companies I worked for. He was very well respected, very well thought of, came from a management consulting background. And I just took the opportunity to do an informational interview with him. And he didn't really know me before I did that, but he was very gracious and took the interview with me. And because of the way that I asked questions and the research that I had done on him and the way that I asked questions of him, he was already impressed. And so there were things that we started to engage on and kept the dialogue going that's even lasted, even though we now work for both two different companies. So again, this idea of doing an informational interview, but then being proactive and following up and sharing insights is a good way to kick off a mentorship relationship. And the other thing too is make sure that you're getting advice from them on the business itself, not just your career. So as you're approaching, particularly if you're approaching people that are senior to you, you want to understand where the organization is going, where's the department going. So you're not just asking for career advice. You want to get insights about their role and what they're doing because that's going to inform their relationship as well. Mentors and sponsors, at the end of the day, they're very attracted to proteges who have potential and can perform. And your mentors and sponsors should include both men and women. You want a variety, not just one type or one kind, or not just one person. Sponsors are putting their reputation on the line when they go to bat for you. So you've got to be visible, deliver excellent quality, and build your own positive reputation. And look for assignments or activities where you can engage with the sponsor. Another tactic that I've always used, and if any of you have been to a Comptia event with me, you know this is me. Anytime a speaker says, "Are there any questions?" I always ask a question. It's a good way to get visibility, and it's a good way to have people think you're pretty smart. Your bravery will be rewarded. I've had a lot of good success with that in my career. Okay, the best mentors and sponsors will take responsibility and hold you accountable. I think a good example of this is when I left SunGard and I went over to SAP. It was a rather large promotion, and at first, you know, when I left, my manager, our channel chief, he was pretty disappointed that I was leaving. But then I said to him, I said, look, you know, you're not losing an employee. You launched an executive career. And he thought about that. He's like, wow, you're right. I did. I was like, this is the baby bird leaving the nest. This is a really good thing that you did for me. Thank you for that. And that's really important. Another example is the vice president of sales that sponsored me to go to Ireland. When I came back, I'll be honest, I tried to kind of rest a little bit. I tried to go back into my old role. And he pulled me into his office one day and he was like, what do you think you're doing? You know, he's like, you don't get to go back to how things were before you went. You have to take the next step. You've got to take on more responsibility. You've got to go further. And again, unfortunately, that meant I left the company, which is not what he had in mind. But I thought it was so great that here he sponsored me and he was holding me accountable to use that experience to take the next step in my career. And that's really what you're looking for. Now, you might ask yourself, what do mentors and sponsors get out of this relationship? And again, I'm really looking forward to hearing Jeff's insights on this. These are some of the things that I've gleaned from this. They get satisfaction in knowing that their knowledge and their wisdom is helping somebody else achieve their goals. They want to give something back and make a difference. They're doing self-development. They're honing their leadership skills, their management skills, their feedback skills, their coaching skills. They could be gleaning new insights by getting a different perspective by talking to somebody else in the organization. They're building their own network, and there's often very increased job satisfaction for them as well. So I spent a lot of time talking about those two roles because they're really, really important. But now I'm going to spend a couple of minutes just talking about the other roles as well. So the mentorship is a reciprocal relationship. So you're going to learn from the mentee, and you're going to get access to information that you might not normally have. And teaching someone else also helps your own skills. So, you know, if you have a mentee, you're going to be helping that person as well. But as a mentee, make sure they are open, honest, and responsive. I think as I mentor people, the biggest frustration I get is that the mentees are not responsive. So make sure that as the mentee, you're being responsive, you're setting the agenda, and you're setting the pace with them. Now, a reverse mentor, this is kind of a newer term. This term came about when a lot of millennials came into the workforce and they were doing they knew a lot about social media, and a lot of more seasoned managers and executives did not. And so they were pairing young millennials with more seasoned executives to teach them about social media and vice versa. But reverse mentoring, we can do anytime. I recently was doing some reverse mentoring. I was helping my brother-in-law make a career change. He was really involved with like blockchain and Bitcoin and things like that, and I wanted to learn more about that. So he was mentoring me about cryptocurrency, and I was mentoring him on career changes, and so we were doing a bit of reverse mentoring. This is a great way for you to experiment with something in a relatively safe way before you invest in taking a class or something like that. Now, pacing partner. This is the peer whose skills and talents challenge you to be your best. So these are the folks that, like, they're in meetings and they're challenging you. Now, it's not mean girls, right? These are not people who are playing devil's advocate, but these are people who they're just as good as you, and they've got ideas and they've got talents and they have skills, and they're going to go toe to toe with you, and you're going to get better as a result. And I think if you've seen, now this is an old movie, so I'm dating myself, but the movie Hackers, which, Angelina Jolie started before she was Angelina Jolie. But that's a great example of hackers as pacing partners, right? They were all trying to outdo one another on the biggest hack. They were pacing partners. They were pacing each other. I really think that this is such an important role in your personal board of directors because, again, access to those leaders who are the mentors and the sponsors, that's great, but they're not with you day to day. Your pacing partners are in the trenches with you, and they're helping you to be your best. Okay, now, this sounds like a lot of work, right? So it's sort of like, okay, where's the easy button? Can't I just pay somebody? Sort of, not really, but sort of. You can work with a coach. So a career coach or an executive coach is like a personal trainer for your career. Coaches partner with their clients and they bring structure and a process and a plan to the table, but you have to pay for it. They're very good at helping with specific challenges or transitions. So let's say like in my case, I worked with an executive coach when I got promoted at SAP. I was going to have a team of 9 people reporting to me. I'd never had a team that big. SAP was the largest company that I had ever worked for. So I had a coach to help me with my 90-day plan to transition, and that was really critical. A couple of things I want to say about coaches. One, like just make sure that they're licensed. Like this is a profession. So if you decide to work with a coach, just make sure you are working with a licensed professional. Also, too, this is not the same as a life coach. Career coaches or executive coaches, they're specifically focused on your career, and they don't take the place of the personal board of directors, but they can help you, again, like I said, with that specific project or that specific transition that you're going through. All right, what's your role? Real quick. These relationships work if they're mutually beneficial and both parties should be benefiting. So say thank you early and often. Demonstrate trust, demonstrate loyalty, be responsive, follow up, be proactive. Ask for stretch assignments. There's something that I call a 5% project, and make a case and document it, but find a gap or something that needs to be done in the organization that you can go do and work with a mentor or a sponsor on it and get recognized for it. So this is work. You've got to get visible in order to make this happen. Okay. So like any journey, career success takes successful navigation, and having that personal board of directors can help get you into the fast lane and navigate you through some of those traffic jams that can get in the way. All right. Oh, and one last thing for all of the women on the phone, I want to call out to my peeps, because I am chairperson of the Advancing Women in Technology community. One of the things I want to highlight for you, your desire to achieve is not just self-serving, it's good for business. There are lots of studies out there that show that where there is gender parity across the organization, that these organizations have better financial performance, they get products, they release better products, they're more in tune with their customers. So there's more and more data coming out from the Peterson Institute and from Catalyst and from leanin.org. All kinds of organizations are coming out with data that's showing that gender parity in all levels of an organization and all departments of an organization does lead to greater financial results. So as I said, you advancing your career is good for business. It's more than just it's good for you. So it's actually not really self-serving at all. You're doing your employer a favor. All right, next steps before I get into my interview with Hillary and Jeff. Analyze your network. Who do you know? You can have more than one person in each role. So go through your LinkedIn network or your org chart and think about these different roles and who could play them. Get visible. Get involved in Comptia. Volunteer in your company. Leverage company programs. If there isn't one, go start one. That's a great way to get visible in your organization or your community. Pay it forward. Play the roles that you want to attract into your work life. If you want sponsors, sponsor your coworkers, right? If you want mentors, mentor other people, and those roles will start to be attracted into your career. Know yourself. So as I said at the very beginning, understand your strengths, understand your goals, understand your work preferences, because you've got to be very on purpose with your board of directors. This isn't just people you know. These are people that you're strategically picking to help you advance your career. And again, be deliberate about this. You have to be on purpose about your strategy. A fulfilling, rewarding career does not happen by accident. So I have 2 kids, and I always say it takes a village to raise them. It's the same thing with advancing a career. You need to leverage this personal board of directors to help your career thrive. Okay, so that's my spiel on personal board of directors. And so what I'd like to do now is introduce Jeff and Hillary, because I have lots of questions for you guys about the mentoring and the sponsoring. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to that slide. Oh, there we go. And we'll have this up as we're talking. So Jeff and Hillary, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Sure can. Fantastic. So Jeff, I'm going to start off by asking you the first question. You and Hillary have been working together for a very long time. So can you tell us, how did this mentorship relationship begin and why?
Yeah, you know, even before that, I just want to let you know, I used to be a football coach, both youth leagues and then high school. And it wasn't because of the love of the game so much. It was probably 20% of it, but at least 80% of that process was because I enjoyed coaching. So coaching was already part of my DNA. And so, you know, career-wise, I was in the telecom space for quite some time. I had gotten to the point where I was a general manager, vice president for a CLEC in Northern California, and I hired Hillary. And as an account or a channel manager or a CAM, I guess in the technology side it's used, and so I had quite a number of them working for me, and I hired Hillary, and she had a lot of experience at that position. But after a few conversations, I realized that she was a lot more than a channel account manager, right? The channel account manager that we had was a very tactical position. It was very, you know, bring in the deal, make your quota, and do that the next month and the next month. But after at least maybe 2 or 3 conversations, I realized Hillary was way more strategic than that, and I thought, oh boy, did I maybe make a mistake? Not so much for me, but for her, because she already was thinking 3 years down the road. You know, what should that position look like? What kind of partner should she be going after? So I was attracted to her pretty quickly from the start, because I knew I could have different conversations with her than I could with most other folks. So it started organically. I'm not even sure I'd heard the term mentor at this point. Again, this was about 20 years ago. There was nothing that I can remember that was a formalized mentor program. So it just started as conversations to a subordinate, and we started having these conversations, and it was quite enjoyable, right, to hear what her views were on the industry. And so I think, you know, I don't think Hillary ever said, hey, will you be my mentor? I think it was just a relationship that just kind of grew from that. Sometime after that, actually fairly short period after that, I decided to be an entrepreneur myself. So I left there and had my own business. But so once I left, you know, because when we worked together, even though we had strategic conversations and looking towards the future, we still had a common goal, which was in sales, it's making the number, whatever the number is for that month, for that quarter, for that year. But once I left and started my own company, we had different goals, and that's, I think, when our relationship really started to grow.
Gotcha. So you sort of identified her as a standout from the beginning.
I did.
So Hillary, kind of so I'd like to get your perspective on that as well, kind of how it got started. And, you know, in terms of working with Jeff, what were some of the benefits that you've seen in this relationship as it's evolved?
Sure. First, though, Christina, great presentation. I learned so much. So thank you for that. That's amazing content that you shared with us. The benefits, there's so many. It did start organically. And Jeff does have that coaching, but it's a soft coaching. So most of the time until later on in my career, probably the last 5 years, I didn't realize that he was mentoring me. He was driving me. He was pushing me. He was directing me. It just all seemed so very natural. Some of the benefits that I've certainly gotten are confidence. There's something so special about having somebody in your corner, on your side, cheering for you. And then just as important, with celebrating your successes, Jeff has been there to help me back up with my failures. And I've had many, because as he said, I do take risk, and I'm always thinking over here and over there. It doesn't always pan out for me. But to have that person in that soft landing space that always just said, brush it off. What did you learn? Do it better next time. So it's been an amazing 20 years.
So that's interesting, because you both just reiterated what I was talking about in my presentation. Was one, mentors tend to they are people who have that propensity to want to coach, right? So those are good people to target. And you talked about how it started organically and how you built chemistry over time. And so that, again, those are when the best mentor-mentee relationships work. I think a lot of companies try to do mentorship programs. They try to formalize it. And sometimes that works, because sometimes you get lucky within the construct of the program, you can get connected with the right person. But my advice to everybody, and I think you've reiterated that point, you can't rely on just a program. This is something that if you really want these people in your career and in your life, you've got to go attract them and find them and nurture that relationship over time. So I'm just curious too, going back over the length of time, Jeff, I'll turn this back over to you. What were the kinds of things that you were coaching Hillary on then? And then fast forward, as both of your careers have matured, what are the kinds of things that you're talking about now? Have they changed a lot in that time period?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, just think anybody that's listening to this right now, that's 20 years of time. I mean, I think we're all different people than we were 20 years ago, pretty substantially, right? So we learn from our failures and our successes, and we've lived those together from a relational standpoint. But I'll give you one of those big aha moments happened to me. So I can't remember the year. I'm going to say 7 years ago. I can't remember when it was when Comptia decided to start a new council, the Telecom Advisory Council, and I was the original chair of that. Annette Tabor came to me and asked me to do that. And so I assembled a board. I think it was 18 people, and I asked Hillary to be part of that board. And we had a lot of heated discussions. We had a lot of channel chiefs from pretty good-sized companies, pretty high-end executives from AT&T, Verizon, channel chief from from Comcast. I mean, some pretty high-end people. And we'd have these discussions, and I noticed Hillary was fairly quiet. And then it dawned on me, and going, one thing we never talked about is the fact that you deserve a seat at the table, at the top of the table, at the head of the table, not just as a participant. And at that point, I kind of started pushing her a little bit, and she can get into that part of it. I started pushing her to get out of her comfort zone, and from that point, I'm going to say 7 years ago to now, I've seen her biggest growth. Not because of me, but because she started taking not just career risk, but also risk in relationship in our industry, which is really where I saw her start to thrive.
So Hillary, how did that feel when he started to kind of push you a little bit? What was that like, and then what did you do with that coaching as he was giving that to you?
Well, at first, I just wanted to throw up. I mean, I'm being honest, because it really was. I felt so overwhelmed and so out of my league, and he's right on the money when big changes started to happen as far as that time. We were in a particular council meeting, and it was an aggressive meeting, lots of opinions, great ones, but lots of opinions, and he literally took my chair away and said, stand up and say something. And so it started from there. Yeah, I mean, but that's what I needed. And each time he would take me, we'd have a cup of coffee or we'd have something before one of the events that was coming up next, and he would fill me with so much confidence that I didn't realize that's what he was doing. He was setting me up for the next phase and the next phase and the next phase. And there was this last year. I was asked to MC one of the community meetings the day, and I would have cried for a week 7 years ago if I had even had to think about doing that. But I remember going up on the stage when Jim Hamilton announced me, and the only person that I saw was Jeff Ponce sitting in the back there beaming with sincere pride. And I just felt like, wow, I have come a very long way under the guidance and coaching and counseling and, the therapy sessions with Jeff. And so he's been there every step of the way in very different forms. But this is with all sincerity, every big step that I have taken has been with him, at my side and in my ear in the best, most positive way.
And I was at that conference, and I remember you being an MC, and I thought you did a great job. I would have never known, sitting in the audience, that was something that would have been difficult for you. So I think you were well prepped, and you did a great job. So,
thank you.
Good for you. And thank you, Jeff, for doing that. So Hillary, my next question is going to be back at you. So based on how Jeff has helped you in your career, have you gone on to mentor other people? Have you done that pay it forward next step? And if so, what has that looked like for you?
Absolutely. It's been, and it will continue to be, such an important part of my life in a career aspect, fulfillment aspect. And I really try to, I have had other mentors that were, rough in style and tough love's going to get you there. And they were great and very helpful, and it did. But I choose to mirror Jeff's style, and that's really from a place of true encouragement. You can do it. If it doesn't go well, again, dust it off. We'll be there. I try to be present, in some of their bigger moments if I can, like Jeff was in the back of the audience for me, just so they have that touchstone and they know that, there's a fan out there. But mentoring is so important that actually that was part of the reason why we founded Alliance of Channel Women, is to make sure that we could have a group of really caring women that want to help that next generation come up. We've been doing it for 9 years now. Again, I just want to continue to do it. I've mentored mentees that are now mentors themselves, and those are really proud moments to see. But I think paying it back is the biggest gift that you can give. And get.
That's fantastic.
I meant more of get.
Yeah. So somebody from the audience asked a question, and I'm going to go ahead and address this. If anyone else has questions that you would like us to address, put them either in the chat or in the Q&A panel, either one, and we will definitely address them, because I think we're going to have a few minutes to take questions from the audience. So please feel free to put them in either chat or Q&A, and we will get those addressed. So Billy's question is, how do you guys deal with the moments where you feel you aren't the most qualified individual, but people insist on coming to you for answers or advice, especially when you feel the person asking the question is maybe more knowledgeable or skilled than you are? And one of the things that I'll answer this first, and then if you guys have another perspective, I'd love to hear it. My thinking is, if people are coming to you, even if you feel like you don't have the answer, they're coming to you because they think that your opinion is valuable, or that you're someone that they can talk through things. So I mentioned mentoring relationships don't have to be super formal. They can be informal, and I often call that on-the-spot mentoring. So sometimes you could have been in a meeting with a colleague, and they might say to you, "Hey, how did I do in that presentation?" Or, "Did I deliver my message clearly?" they're looking for some on-the-spot mentoring feedback. Again, this is where you can really be that pacing partner for that person. And so sometimes the best way to help them isn't to give them the answer, it's to help them ask better questions. Or maybe somebody else who can give them that answer. That happens to me a lot. People will come to me not often because I know the answer, but because, I don't know the answer, but somebody else might. I know this person might know the answer. Go talk to that person. So they're just stuck and they need to go to the next step, and they think I might be able to help them go to the next step. So it's not always about having the answer to the question. It's maybe you're not asking the right question, or maybe there's another person that can help get you that answer. So those are two ways that you can still be helpful to that person and play that pacing partner role for them. So Hillary or Jeff, do you have any other thoughts on how you might respond to that?
Yeah, I would. Cause actually, this just happened 2 hours ago to me. A young man that I mentored a few years back, very informally, a fairly short one actually, probably maybe no more than 6 months, is looking to acquire an existing company, and he called me and he wanted my opinion. And I'm an entrepreneur. I own a few companies, so I'm a little bit of a serial entrepreneur. So and he knew that. So I'm asking a lot of pointed questions, very high level, but I'm not an expert at anything. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a CPA. And there's a lot of pieces that I don't know the answer to. And if he really wants to buy this company after the conversation, I kind of gave him a list of what he needs in his team, right? Which was that lawyer, that CPA, someone who can analyze the business, all those kind of things, and including his wife, by the way. So, and because he hadn't even had that conversation yet, and so that happens quite often.
Yeah. And so you just connect them to the next step, and you're still doing the right thing. Yeah. Sorry, anything you want to add to that?
There's just one quick thing is that if they come to you and ask your opinion, it's because they have a whole lot of respect for you. And take a self moment and give yourself credit that you might be the right person. Just because they're a higher level or a different title, you might have the answer that sets them on their way just perfectly. Believe in yourself.
Yeah. You're right. There was another question that came in. I want to address you. So somebody is asking, they're in the middle of a career change, and they want to know that how do I know my future employer supervisor will be a mentor, not just in IT, but also moving forward in my career? And often, we want managers to be mentors. I think the ideal manager is a mentor. It doesn't always happen that way. And so I think, my advice would be, as you're interviewing, particularly the hiring manager, the person that you'd be working for, ask questions about their management style. Ask where they have been a mentor, and how have their mentees progressed in their careers. Ask how they feel about professional development plans. So there are questions that you can be asking during the interview process, because every interviewer will ask, do you have any questions? And very often they will evaluate you as a candidate based on the quality of the questions that you ask. And so don't ask questions about things that you can find on the website. As someone who's been a hiring manager, that just pisses me off, because you could go read that. Ask me questions about things that you're not going to find on the website, like how do you feel about professional development plans? How have people who have reported to you in the past advanced their careers? How do you feel about that? Do you mentor your staff? And if it's not a thing, let's say you like the job and you like the manager, but maybe, as I mentioned, there's a lot of chemistry in a mentor-mentee relationship. Maybe that you won't get true mentoring from your direct supervisor, but that doesn't mean that there aren't other people in the broader department or organization that can't become a mentor. But again, you're not going to walk up to them. It's not like, Are You My Mother? If you have little kids, so that's a very popular book in my house. It's not an Are You My Mother? You're going to have to, again, do those other things that I talked about in terms of being visible, asking questions, getting involved. that sort of thing. And then on the same line, someone else asked a question about they're trying to change kind of industries. And so how do they find a mentor to do that? That's where places like Comptia or local networking places can help with that. So you need to get involved in some local organizations where employers in the area are attending and meet people and find people from there. And a tactic that I have found that has always worked for me is asking for an informational interview. So and I state it like that because they let them know that it's structured. Can I have 30 minutes? An informational interview. I will even send them the questions ahead of the call, and I will even offer a phone call because, again, sometimes people's schedules, even coffee, can be too much time if they don't know you. But most people can fit in a 30-minute phone conversation, and if they like you and the conversation is going well, they may give you more time either then, or they may say, hey, I'm really enjoying this conversation. Let's get together for coffee next week. But a very structured 30-minute phone conversation is a great way to start getting to know people, especially if you're looking to change industries. So again, I know Jeff and Hillary, you guys have made some company changes over the years. Any additional insights that you would add in terms of career changes and finding mentors in new roles or new careers?
Yes, you need to be looking for people, maybe not in like industries, but in similar industries that might be able to help advocate for you. Example, because I own both the telecom practice and I also own a software development company, and we mostly work with MSPs, I straddle both sides of the fence. And so I've been involved in telecom associations. In fact, I was the president of one, and I've been pretty much exclusively part of Comptia for the last 7 years. And I had a lot of leadership positions, and Christina, we're on board together at AWIT, and so I've gotten to know a lot of people. But I've had a lot of people from the telecom world realizing things are changing so rapidly that they want to come into the IT side. They want to stay maybe in account management, but they want to move into that's definitely a different career path, and they want to know what they need. Well, Comptia lays that out pretty easily, right? They with all these certifications and there's pathing there, and so it's not really like I'm helping them. I'm just saying go to Comptia, but that's mostly what I see.
Mm-hmm. Yep, good points.
Christina, I would say, just real quick on that, I think that's a great place that your pacing partners come in as well. That's your feet on the street network. They have sponsors, they have mentors, they have a broad, I spend a lot of my networking time, building out my peer networking group, because they seem to be the ones that have the ear to people that are hiring. They know what's going on within their own organizations and typically their competitors. I think that I didn't know that there was a name called Pacing Partners. I'm glad I've learned that from you. But I think those are a great resource.
Yeah.
Great. Another question that came up, and I didn't capture their name. Who is it? Nicholas. How do you know if you have the right mentor? So, could it happen, and this could happen, where kind of the vision or the mission of your mentor and your vision are not aligned? So how do you know you have the right mentor? And this is where I brought up my chemistry is key slide. It really is. If you're finding that your mentor is guiding you in a direction that you're not comfortable with, that's different from getting someone out of their comfort zone, which is what Jeff did for Hillary. But if it's just stuff that you're really not comfortable with, then it's time to start backing out of that relationship gracefully and professionally, and then find a different mentor. So your spidey sense is going to tell you if you have the right mentor. Because if you remember what I said at the beginning, the job of the mentor is to help you with a vision for the future. So, when I was looking at, I thought I was going to go into public relations before I landed in the technology industry. And my mom happened to be in school communications, and she knew a woman who had her own PR firm. And so I talked to this woman about her PR firm. And so what she did from a mentoring perspective is she helped me frame out what does a future career in public relations look like. So mentors are helping you create that vision for the future. So if your mentor is creating a vision for the future that you are not comfortable with, or like it's just not a fit for you, then it's like, okay, there's probably something you can learn from that, but you take that nugget and you're responsible, you're professional, but maybe you don't continue to develop that particular mentorship. You probably would go develop some other relationships to round out something that's going to give you a vision of the future for you that's a better fit for you. And again, you might still want to keep that person in your network, but maybe they're not as proactive a mentor. But I think you sort of know when you have the right mentor-mentee relationship. I mean, Hillary and Jeff, would you agree with that? You sort of know when you're in the zone in the relationship with this sort of thing.
It's chemistry. There's absolutely no question,
Yeah.
And I don't think there's any guessing. But you're right. You have to follow your gut, and you have to have the guts, by the way, to back out gracefully, like you said. Some people are a little afraid to say that. Boy, it took me 3 years to get to this person, right? And now I realize they're not the right person. Well, they're not the right person. They're not the right person. I mean, it's your career.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Another good question came in. My mentor isn't, I'm looking to transition into cybersecurity. My mentor isn't in that field, but I believe she can help me professionally. Can she be a good choice? Absolutely. And remember I said, you're going to have more than one person in these roles. So you're going to have somebody who's mentoring you that's not in your industry, and then you'll eventually gain mentors that are in your industry. You'll have both. So maybe the mentor that's not in the industry is helping you get that job, that first job. This person's reviewing your resume, or they're reviewing interview questions for you, or they're introducing you to people to help you get interviews. Like, they're going to be providing that. But then, once you get that cybersecurity role, you are going to want mentors specific to that field. But don't think of a personal board of directors, I have one mentor, one sponsor, one pacing partner. You're going to have multiple that are going to be more active or less active in your careers over time. There's definitely an ebb and flow to how these relationships work. And in fact, again, Hillary, I'll put this back to you. I'm going to guess that over the course of your career, there were times where you were working with Jeff more often and more frequently, and then there were times where maybe it was, less casual, but then something would come up and then you guys would engage more proactively, more frequently. Am I accurate in that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, as Jeff said, he hired me, then he left me. And he has gotten into while he still is involved in the IT and the telecom industry, he's certainly branched out and, does a lot of business in India, does a lot of software development, does a lot of things that I don't have, that have nothing to do with what I do. But it still works very, very well. But, I also have that, business coach that that's a peer of mine, that's a gentleman that does the same thing that I do, because I like to bounce things off of him. Like, I'm going to approach this new idea, or I want to ask for a raise, or I want to do this. I need your opinion on this one particular thing. What can I do? How should I do it? Does this sound right? And so to your point, it does have lots of different looks, but that one that's really there can follow you from role to role without question.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So a couple of questions are coming in around resources and where can I go and where can I find. So I am, since this is a Comptia sponsored webinar, I am going to point you to some Comptia resources. So again, the Creating IT Futures page, and I don't know, Justin, as you're doing follow-up back to the webinar, if you want to send some of these out to everybody, but the Advancing Women in Technology community has a career center that we can get you the link to. That's got lists of resources that you can tap into. And there's also, and I'm really going to plug this one, so I'm going to put it in the chat window, awitconnect.org. This is a new website that the Advancing Women in Technology community launched a little more than a year ago, but it's been very grassroots and we're looking to get traction for it. This is intended to be the Google for all, it is sort of women and diversity related organizations. And we originally did it for just women, but I think we're starting to expand it out to more diversity initiatives as well. But most of the resources are, if you're a woman in tech and you want to find events near you, networking groups near you, coding camps near you, AWIT Connect is the place to go. So again, if you're a woman or a minority listening to this webinar and you want to go check out AWIT Connect, lots of resources there. And then again, I think everybody can benefit from the resources on the Advancing Women in Technology career resource page. And again, I know Creating IT Futures has a lot of resources as well, but I'm going to defer to the folks at Comptia as they do the follow-up to point you to a lot of additional resources around that. So I'm realizing we're at just about at time. So, and there's lots of other questions. So again, if the folks at Comptia want to email me, what I can do is probably put Q&A out maybe on my Twitter, which is @ChrisGray. I'll put that in the chat as well, and I can answer these on Twitter as well, and we can do it that way. But so what I want to wrap up with, Jeff, I'll start with you. What advice do you have for people who want to mentor others? And then Hillary, I'll have you close it with, what advice do you have for folks that are playing the mentee role?
All right, well, I guess for people looking to become a mentor, I will tell you, I promise you will get more out of it than you put into it. That, over the course of time, with Hillary's and my relationship, I can't even tell you how many times I've said, I would do this, but the question was I doing that? I have 4 grown children, and so they learn by what I did, not by what I told them to do, right? So I can't even tell you how many times I would give Hillary advice, and then I'd have to look at myself and say, wow, am I taking my own advice? And so it helped me actually to grow my career. And as far as someone who's trying to look to become a mentor, join a platform, join an organization like an AWIT or like a Comptia, and through AWIT that has a formalized program. Everything that Hillary and I were talking about just happened organically. That's not so easy, and that happens to be like that, almost that perfect relationship, and that's what's worked out for us for almost 20 years now. But go find a organization like Comptia that's got a process that probably can even help with KPIs, things along those lines, to see, so that way the mentor and the mentee know that this relationship is working. And that's truly the best advice I can give.
Hillary, what about you?
On the mentees, I would say, please, if you're interested in it, pursue it. Christina, I think your advice was spot on, where it's just start a conversation, have follow up with that person after, thank that person. People want to help. People really do want to help. And it always warms my heart and lifts my spirits and makes my day when somebody emails me or calls me and says, I'm really interested in becoming a mentee. It means that they want to invest in themselves. They're willing to put in the time. Who doesn't want to help somebody like that? But it really is, back to what you had said, Christina, it's making sure you follow up with that person, show appreciation, show that you're learning. There's nothing better when you're a mentee than to get an award or get a raise or get a promotion, get any of that. Share that with that mentor. Let them know how much you appreciated it, and help, have them share in your success as well. I think it will go places, and have, more than one. Individuals have different strengths. Absolutely. Don't expect one person to be, the person that can solve everything in your career. But they probably have one super strength, like Jeff's is encouragement, So find your superhero and then find their superpower and then tap into it. It's worth it.
Awesome. Great advice. So Justin, I know we're pretty much at time, but I'll turn it over to you if you want to do anything just to close it out.
Absolutely, and I'd like to thank the three of you. You guys gave some great information. This was a great presentation, and I really appreciate you taking the time to present to this audience. And for everybody who submitted questions, we really thank you for that as well. I know there were a few questions that we weren't able to address, but we have captured them all, and we will send them to the presenters today, and we'll make sure we can get those out to everyone that attended. And the webinar will be made available for all attendees today. You'll get it automatically from us, but we will be sending out other resources, the contact information, if it's okay, from the presenters. And like I said, we will be addressing all the questions that we couldn't get to today. So again, thank everybody for attending. Thank you for the presenters. You guys did an amazing job. And for anybody looking to attend any other webinars, please visit Comptia.org or AITP.org under events, and you can see all the upcoming webinars that we have. So thank you, and I'll go ahead and end it here. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.